It's a little movie called Air.
But a shoe is just a shoe.
Until my son steps into it.
Directed by my boy, Ben Affleck, baby.
Yes. In the comments often, hey, Ben Affleck looks shitty.
Yeah, I know. You look like Affleck's chubby, shitty older brother after a night out on the town. Like, yes, I know. I'm busy these days, guys. I'll get back. I'm gonna get it back. I'm gonna get the chisel back.
He's gonna get it back.
It gets easier as you get older. I don't know if you know this, but I'm really waiting for my 40s to really start getting in great shape.
As someone in their 40s, you're right. It's super easy.
You look great.
Thank you. Do you see this? This is what you have to look forward to, kids. Council Pop.
What'd you think? What'd you think of Air?
Here we go. Air in 60 seconds. The filmmaking and the acting I thought was excellent and something I had come to expect. The film is exactly what I thought it would be. The downside to this film is I don't think there's enough here to actually make a film. I don't blame the filmmakers for it. I think it looks like a great opportunity on paper. Why not do it? But I watched this film, and my big criticism is there are no stakes to this film. I don't really care on a level that the performances and the writing makes you feel like there is. It's not enough. It's just not enough. And it doesn't, on some of these films that, these like biopic type films, even when you know the outcome, yeah, that's still fine. But at least shows you things you didn't think you would see or you couldn't see, or just paints a picture and of things that you didn't know happened, or like, this is just a boardroom meeting. And, oh, did you guys work late this weekend? Okay. Like, there's just not a ton there to me that I think warrants a film. But the filmmaking stuff, I thought was great. The performances I thought were great. I think the directing was really solid. I think the writing's really good. I think there's a lot of good filmmaking stuff here. But it shouldn't have been a film.
I thought it was good. I just don't think it should exist.
Hopefully that made sense to those at home.
I think so. I'll just say, like, I don't think this movie is bad. I don't think it's bad by any stretch. I think it's very enjoyable. It's a very enjoyable watch. As viewing experiences go, it was enjoyable and pleasant. But sort of similarly to you, I think. Like, I don't really. There never felt like a lot of weight. There wasn't a ton of like character development or background, so the stakes weren't really there for me. It was just like, oh yeah, these are guys that we're clearly supposed to care about, and it just all stays kind of like at an arm's length. I feel like the whole movie is just kind of like really superficial, and people are just kind of like, everybody's just kind of putting their toe in the water here. Everybody's just kind of, oh yeah, we're just the bare minimum of what you need to do to kind of get this out because we think it's going to be stylish and exciting. And there's a lot to like, but the fact that the fact of these criticisms that we're describing made me go deeper. Like in the days after, I thought a lot about this movie, and I was like, it almost got worse as I thought about it because of what like implications there were like from that, where it's just like, oh yeah, we're just kind of telling this little story. So I want to get into that. That's where I almost want to start. End my time, but let me keep talking.
All right. So if you'd like to keep talking.
I just think because like those things combined, because it's very superficial, it feels very like slick and produced and packaged. Like I just didn't really understand the why. Okay, so like, yes, I liked it, I enjoyed it, but why? Why is this story being told, and why does it matter? Why do I care as a viewer? It is, like you said, it's just like some boardroom meetings, and that can be fun, and a lot of this is interesting, but there's no like undercurrent of meaning or impact until the end, when it kind of tries, but it doesn't really, and it almost starts to feel almost kind of hammy at the end. I kind of thought like Matt Damon's big speech in the presentation, like, oh, they're treating this like they're fucking storming the beaches of Normandy, like the drama.
Yeah.
Oh, your son is a god.
You're gonna be remembered forever because some things are eternal. You're Michael Jordan, and your story is gonna make us want to fly.
You know, like it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
almost too much. So then the whole thing just felt very.
It is too much.
Yes.
It is too much. It's not almost. It is.
Yes. I after I thought about it for a while, I read some of the some critics, some reviews, and one woman I want to give a shout out to, Wendy Ide of the UK Observer. Her little blurb, and I read her review that I thought really summed this up the way I felt after I watched it was, for all its affable charm, there's something slippery and disingenuous about this film. And that sums up a lot of how I felt, where I'm just like, I'm kind of like wanting to see your other hand. You're showing me this movie. What are you doing with your other hand? I'm being sold to here. You know, like there's something happening here that's very corporate and very advertisement adjacent. And because it doesn't get deeper at any successful level, I can't be like, oh, this is a great film about this dramatic story, because it's not. It's just kind of a slick commercial adjacent thing about how great this big corporation is, and it's just all a little weird.
Yeah, I hear you, but I don't necessarily think it's a commercial. I mean, there's commercial-esque. I get where one would feel that way. What I take more away of it is it felt like they tried to exploit a layup. That's what I think the sneaky part of it is. That I think that it's a straight to Amazon release, except it went to theaters for a little bit, and I think they put it in theaters because they think they're going to get an Oscar out of this. I think it's written, it's directed, it's performed as if this is Oscar bait. And I think it has the filmmaking sense of like a short film made over a weekend. Like they're just in the office. Like, how many locations are there? There's 4 locations. Yes. It's like if you were Ben Affleck and I'm Matt Damon, and we know Chris Tucker and I'm blanking on his Jason Bateman. Like we know these guys. Like our 4 friends could like get in a room and like make a really good film over the weekend.
Yeah.
And we got, holy shit, we have the rights and the access to this fucking cultural icon. Well, let's just fucking bang this out.
Yeah,
this kind of low budget, like low key, kind of just do this.
Low key deal.
Exactly.
And we might like make a killing financially. We might win some awards. Like there's some big upside to doing this like on the low. Like that feels like the sneaky part of it. Not that they're like jerking off Nike or the Jordan brand.
Well, no, but they are jerking off Nike
even though they are.
They also
that's not
are.
the sneaky part. They also are. But that's overt. Like, that's not the sneaky part of it.
I'm ashamed to say I'd still buy the shoes, even if it meant giving Phil money and we make them in Taiwan.
To me, the sneaky part of it is what I just said.
But you're exactly right. And I know we're losing people because they want us to talk about specifics about this movie, and we will. But like, what you're making my point in the sense of where I was like, that's why I started to get a little more like film existential on it. Because to me, this is just very, and you know, fuck us, who are we? But because the budget is like 70 to 90 million, so it's not like it's some low budget thing.
In terms of those kind of actors, that like
no,
that
for
is a
sure.
low
But that's what I'm saying is it feels like it's a very like this is very disrespectful to people I like a lot. But it's like other times where I go like, I'm not insulting you. It's because I think you're better than this. I think you're capable of more because I know you're good. And so this movie is totally passable and totally enjoyable and totally fine. But like it doesn't reek of a ton of effort to me. It does not seem like a ton of effort was put into this. And I'm sorry. And then I read this, or I saw a little video of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck talking together. Affleck was asked about the production of this film and the experience.
I find the most wonderful thing about it was I loved coming to work every day. I loved seeing Matt. It just makes it so easy. And it was just so much fun. I don't know, it's kind of felt like just us and getting to do the thing that we wanted to do. I did. I loved it. I miss it every day since.
And it's like, yes, I'm happy for you. And the movie is fine. But like, it has that energy to it. Like it's a really just like insider club and we just did this and it was cool. And we didn't, we didn't work too hard. There's a lot of simple sets, and we just, like it's just not there's no challenge to it. It's not challenging at all. It doesn't make you think.
Yeah.
It's just like
But they
the best kind of turn your brain off, but like in a not in a white men can't jump remake way, in like in a better way, in a slightly elevated way,
Yeah. The presumed intent that that's what they were trying to do is not great.
Yeah.
If that was sort of the result of it, it's a little bit more forgivable. But like if they went in to be like, let's just kind of sit this one out, like this is a
I'm sure
this
no
is
one
a
consciously
this is
did
a
that.
home run. Like this is an easy one, guys. Like we got some good shit here. Get a couple guys, shoot this over like 3 weeks. Fucking bang
it
this
was
out.
a really quick shoot. And you know what I thought of too? Was like, and again, I don't begrudge these people usually. I'm starting to more as I get a little crabbier with just how consistently awful so many films are. But I thought like, oh, this is kind of the Ben Affleck, Matt Damon version of what Adam Sandler does. Where he just like gets his buddies and we all go to a place and we just kind of have a good time and we make something that is, Adam Sandler makes some real stinkers, but sometimes he makes some like passable, like, okay, it's like just a solid, non-threatening, non-challenging layup of a movie. We're all gonna get paid. We're all gonna get $5 or $10 million. Like,
Great.
and it's fine. And Affleck, I think, is a really good director. I think he's really good. And to me, this movie, though I know I'm in the minority, so I acknowledge I can be wrong, because everybody loves this movie. It's got the critics, the fans, everybody loves it. And people are singling out his direction is really good. And to me, it's very, like, kind of basic. Like, there's a lot of shots that I think are just very simple, and maybe that's a style, right? Maybe it's just like, this is a simple story, we're not gonna complicate it, but there's no real style to it. There's no real, like, intent to the directing. It's just like, all right, lock it off, medium wide. Okay, now we're gonna bring in another pop song. Every scene, another pop song. Okay, medium wide.
Yeah.
Like,
The soundtrack is one of the better parts of the film, in my
it's
opinion.
distracting, I think. There's it's like every scene's gotta have a cue that's totally unnecessary.
Yeah. I enjoyed it because it really places you, but I can see you not. I can see one, not you. Just I can see someone feeling the way they. Like I enjoyed it because it really does place you, and you get a little pep. I'm fine with it.
Listen to
when you
Spotify.
speak of the,
Put on the 80s mix. You get the same effect.
Genius. I did. Speaking of the directing, I think it was really interesting. I would agree with you, except for one scene, and it stuck out to me, not in a bad way, but in an inconsistent way, which may ultimately be a bad way. The only time in the film where it wasn't how you described, because I generally agree with your assessment of the directing for the most part, but the scene with Marlon Wayans, where they kept only one angle, and then of which there was 5 or 6 of that from that scene where they're having the conversation about the "I have a dream" speech. There was one angle that was like hunting for focus.
Yeah, it was like the Matt Damon ISO close-up shot with Wayans in the foreground.
In the foreground, yeah, and it's like a little bit of a snap zoom. I think there was like the camera felt alive. Let's just say the camera felt really alive. But in no other shot in that scene, and in no other scene in the whole movie. I liked it. It made the movie feel a lot more organic and more raw. And then I kept thinking, well, fuck, that's probably how the whole movie should have been directed. If it's gonna be this like small, pared down, like we're locked in this office and we're going through it, then make it feel more like a documentary. Make it feel like unproduced.
Like Adam McKay,
in that sense.
like an Adam McKay style.
Like an Adam McKay movie. And I think there was elements of Adam McKay in this movie, I'm glad you brought that up, that I think maybe they thought they were doing a little bit, but didn't go all the way there with the found footage. They did a handful of like found footage, jump cuts, quick, that he so often does. But again, kind of fell short a little bit for me in terms of overall, like if you're gonna do it, fucking do it and own it and live in that space. Yeah. And I feel like they kind of halved it a little bit.
100%.
Definitely with the cinematography from that one. So
100%. Well, and I noticed that shot too. It's funny you bring that up because it seemed really pronounced. And in that moment, I was like, oh, what's he doing? Like, it got my attention. and I was like,
Yeah.
like this is going somewhere, you know? Like that's what I thought. Like this is gonna lead somewhere, and it doesn't. And then the scene just ends, and you're like, oh, so that was just sort of like a thing wanted to try to do for like a deeper, a bigger picture, bigger meaning. Yeah.
But with the one camera guy, they got maybe probably 3 camera operators. You know,
they had to knock that scene out in 3 hours, you know? Like it was done. Shoot it from all angles.
Gotta get it in for lunch.
Yeah. But we can come back to maybe criticisms. What did you like about it? Because, you know, there is a lot to like, I suppose.
I guess.
I mean,
I think the performances, are the strongest part of it. I mean, and I'm probably biased because I really like everyone in this film most of the time, if not all of the time, really. Yeah. I thought Chris Tucker was great again. I liked, he had a little Southern charm to him. I thought it wasn't, you know, Chris Tucker is Chris Tucker, and he always kind of bleeds through in his roles, but I don't personally mind that. But I thought he did a really good job. He had a little Southern charm to him. I thought Affleck was really good. I thought Matt Damon was great, except a little too much at times. Again, that boardroom. He did rat. He's like, okay, this Oscar time. All right, here we go.
Oh,
like
God.
It felt like a very clear decision, especially in the boardroom. And I thought Jason Bateman was really pleasantly understated. I thought his like a little bit more quiet, a little bit more reserved, like. Which I enjoyed, which was contrast to everybody else in the film. And Marlon Wayans, I thought, did a good job too. I thought he did it. Like I think the performances,
Viola
top
Davis,
to bottom, and Jesus, I guess I'm bury the lead there. I guess I apologize for that.
No one else in this movie was notable.
Yeah, I apologize. I apologize. Please don't cancel me. But yeah,
I also think all the men did great in this movie.
Well, it's only men. There's one fucking girl in it.
No, that's true. That's true. You do have like basically one female role of consequence. Yeah, I agree. The performances were really great. I mean, it's all really great people, all very talented. I agree that Matt Damon kind of dialed it up a little bit. Like, but I mean, I think his performance would have been fine had his character been fleshed out a little more, so I knew why those moments were so important to him. Like, all I really know about Sonny Vaccaro in this film is just like, he's kind of past his prime, and he really wants to be successful. He doesn't want to fail. But, like, it didn't even seem like he really cared about losing his job, and really, that's the only stake that he faces, right? It's like, might lose his job if he fails. And it's like, but he's kind of like, fuck it. Like, his whole attitude is kind of like, I'll get another job, you know? Like,
yeah. Well, and that's why it's hard to really invest into this film, is because it's not like it's not like Nike was some small company. There was still $1 billion company at that point.
Yeah.
It was just the basketball division might have gone away had this not worked out. Which, who gives a shit? Like that's why I don't understand. Like there's really no meat here. There's no meat here.
Presumes that you have, as the viewer, like a really emotional connection to the Jordan brand. And again, I'm not like...
A lot of people do.
I know, but I mean, if anybody, like you and I probably do more than the average person, just as like sports fans and specifically fans of basketball. Like, I like Nike shit. I wear a lot of Nike shit. I wear Jordan stuff. Like, I know those shoes are fucking cool. Like, there was a big part of the culture growing up, but you know, it's like to like deify the brand and these guys that are really just like, hey, they took a chance. Like, is it really like that big of a deal? Is it like, I know it is culturally, Jordan has done so much, but what I thought about afterwards was like, what do you think the purpose of this film? Like, what's the message? What's the message that it wants to impart on you? And I kind of struggle.
The only and I'm trying to do a favor. I agree there is no message, but if you put a gun to my head, the message is, you know, believe in yourself and you can achieve great things. I would assume it's something along those lines. Like if you persevere and you believe in yourself, even if no one on earth believes in you and what you're doing, you can still accomplish great things and change the world.
Yeah, but I wish Matt Damon's character then would have had a little more meat. You know, like a little, like more motivation. Like I want to understand what was driving him.
This goes back to my original point: is that this really doesn't warrant a movie because there's really no drama here. There's no conflict. Like you need conflict to have a movie. You just need it. It's how movies work. This guy is probably a well-off, well-to-do gentleman who had a good upbringing. You know. Probably loving parents, you know, not really strapped for cash at any point in his life, like, and just loves basketball and was in a position and took a chance. Like, there's nothing here, you know, like, what are you going to go into his backstory for if there is no backstory, if there is nothing to talk about?
The drama from a guy, like the drama from a story about a guy who's a millionaire fighting to become a billionaire is not as dramatic as like a guy who's in the gutter and is trying to like make a life for himself. So that's
so
a
you'd
fair
have
point.
to change reality. It would have to be like, yes, he was out back sucking dick for money just before Jordan came in, like, because he needed it. Yeah. You know, like, oh, that's interesting.
But to that point, though, I was reading, which also disappointed me. Like, they did change a lot of reality. Like, Dolores Jordan, Michael Jordan's mother, was not nearly as involved in those conversations. And that Sonny Vaccaro, Matt Damon, never went to their house in North Carolina. Like, those are huge moments of this story. And he's like, that didn't happen.
He did.
We just had some phone calls, and I called him every so often for a few months. So you're already changing the story at the key things, right? Like, to me, the emotional takeaway, the message, the theme comes a lot from Viola Davis, Dolores Jordan, saying, like, basically making the case that, like, these young athletes, particularly black people that are coming up, like, deserve to have a cut.
And even more rare, that person demands to be treated according to their worth because they understand what they are worth.
We're gonna change the way things are done. Like that to me was as close as it got to, like, yeah, it's making a point. That's the point, that it empowered these young up-and-coming millionaires. But then you learn that didn't happen. Like, from my understanding, I could be wrong, but I read a couple articles that were like, oh, no, she wasn't nearly as involved. It was mostly Michael saying that stuff. So then it's like, well, kind of wish would have seen that then. Like, you know, like...
If this was less Viola Davis's story and more Michael's story, it only leads credence to my beef even more, is have Michael Jordan be in the film. Not the real Michael Jordan, but have a character for Michael Jordan. I watched an interview with Ben Affleck where he said,
this is a movie about an icon, about somebody who's so meaningful that the minute, you know, I show you somebody and tell you, like, hey, that's Michael Jordan, you just go, no, it isn't. If I show you something, you know that's not Michael Jordan, and now everything else is fake.
And I disagree. I'm sorry, Ben. You're a great director. I disagree wholeheartedly because of how forgiving audiences truly are. There are so many of these types of films that happen every year where they're just people who look like them. Find someone who looks like Michael Jordan. Winning Time just happened, very successful for HBO. There's 10 guys in that show that barely resemble the people that they played. Magic Johnson's not in that show. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's not in that show. Jerry West's not in that show. Like, everyone likes that show. Like, it's not an excuse to not put Michael Jordan, in my opinion. Audiences are so forgiving, and on top of it, they want to see Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
We love Michael Jordan. We love him. He's great. Everybody loves Michael Jordan. I'm a Knicks fan. I still like Michael Jordan because he's that of importance and to culture in general. So put him in the fucking film. Even if you don't want to make him the star, even if we want to make Viola Davis the lead figure of his family and the engine behind, like, you can still do that. But it became distracting when he comes into the marketing meeting and he's like, kind of like shielding his face and like looking at the wall. Like, why? He wouldn't behave that way. Like, that's more distracting than just showing his fucking face. Stop it. Show him. I didn't like it.
I kind of go back and forth. I'm going back and forth in real time. Like, I get both sides. Like, I get that, yes, it might take you out of it because he's such an icon. But then listening to you talk, I kind of switch back too, because I could see Affleck's decision making more sense if the story wouldn't be so benefited by his presence, which it would. Like, I think it would balance each other out. Like, oh yeah, we can have a moment where we're like, that's not Michael Jordan. But then because he's elevating the story and making the story more exciting, we're going to forget that. We're going to forgive that. We're going to slip in. Like, and it is kind of distracting. And it kind of is at odds with what the rest of the film is, where you're telling us he's literally the center of the universe, right? Like, again, back to Damon's speech. Like, is this guy's gonna fucking change the world?
You're gonna change the fucking world.
Like, really hindsight script writing. But we're not gonna see him? You can't show his face then? Like that doesn't, that's a little, it's a little uneven there. So I get that. I get that.
He should have been, it's a mistake. In my opinion, it's just flat out a mistake.
But you know what? Once they've built you as high as they possibly can, they're gonna tear you back down.
I think it was cheap and honestly distasteful, to be perfectly frank with you. In the boardroom speech, where Matt Damon is going off and doing his, we're storming the beaches of Normandy routine, they start to cut real life things against what he's saying. So essentially, they're positioning what he's saying as if he's predicting the future.
I'm gonna look you in the eyes, and I'm gonna tell you the future.
We're gonna build you up to be a god. They're gonna build you up as high as you could possibly go. See the success, see the unbelievable, blah, blah, blah. And then they're gonna tear you down. And then they show him playing baseball, and then you're gonna hit the lowest point of your life. And then they show newspaper clippings of his father's murder. And then, what I think the worst part of is they just linger on a shot of his father in the room. They just lay on it as he's talking about how difficult his life is going to be. So do you mean to tell me you actively want us to think that Sonny, whatever the fuck his name is, predicted the death of Michael Jordan's father? Why would you position it this way? I can't believe any other person would see this movie from the outside and go, good idea here. We want to position it just like this, that we're going to predict the death of Michael Jordan's father in the horrific way that he was murdered, unfortunately. Like, it's so disrespectful and so distasteful. Just leave that part out. I get the point you're trying to make. I get it. He's going to go through some tough times. Let me remember that. Let me go look that up later. Don't show me the newspaper clipping, then for another 30 seconds lay on his father as he's like, I'm going to be here forever. Don't you worry. Like, it just feels wrong. It just feels wrong. It felt, I was kind of pissed about it, and maybe I'm being too sensitive. I'm a snowflake, whatever. I just thought it was shitty.
Well, they weren't, I don't think they were trying to literally say that he was predicting that kind of thing would happen. But the way you described that, the way it was shot, like, yeah, it's not to tie in that tragedy specifically to this rah-rah speech of your life's going to be full of ups and downs, like, is awkward, I think. I agree with you there. I don't think it's literally like, in this film, Sonny Vaccaro knew that his dad was going to die. Like, it's not that literal.
But they're framing it that way.
It's just all, very, there's too much, like, we can talk about the script. I liked a lot of the script. I thought a lot of it was funny. But I didn't like every single time that they were so clearly writing from today. Like those moments are so heavy-handed. That speech is example exhibit A of just like, okay, no one said this or anything like this. Okay, no one's. And then you're gonna go to the Bulls, and then you're gonna leave for 2 years, and people are gonna question. Like, it's so specific, like it's so specific.
That's my point.
Yeah,
that's my point.
No, I agree. And like all the other little stuff too, like the littler stuff, like
nobody wants to see Barkley on TV.
Like, those kind of lines are just so fucking cutesy and stupid. Like, you're one step away from like, oh, John Stockton, bet he turns out to be anti-vax and a little bit questionable. Like it's just so fucking, like, you just don't need it. Like, quit winking at the camera so much. So, yes, I agree.
So those are my two.
Yeah, I really didn't
Thank
like
you.
the climax of this film. Like, it just went from like, oh, we're casual and superficial to like, we're really pumping. All of a sudden, this is an emotional. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, this is at odds here.
But with little behind it to build to that
Exactly,
moment. Like
exactly.
if you're gonna lay it on that thick, it's
Yeah.
got to be like the company as a whole is going under. The town's gonna fail because
Yeah, exactly.
of the
Sonny
economics.
Vaccaro's gonna get murdered. His daughter's
Yes.
gonna die of cancer. You know, like all this shit. Like he has to do this. He
has to do this.
summon this somehow. But no, he's just he's a schlubby,
No.
down on his luck guy. But he's still probably making $250,000 a year. You know, like he's doing fine.
He'll be fine.
Yeah.
He'll be fine.
I also read that that the actual amount wasn't 250,000 that they had to spread across. That they gave him, it was 2.5 million.
Is Strasser's number right? 250K.
Yes.
All right, what about 500?
No. You're lucky to have 250K to fight for that.
Why would they change that?
To make it seem worse. Like I just don't like that shit. Like that.
I don't like that at all. Why would they change it? It's not even close.
No.
They gave him $2.5 million.
Yeah, that was his signing bonus, the highest ever signing bonus. So then it makes
Why
me
would they-
question, like, so did Adidas offer 2.5 million, or is that bullshit too that they offered the same amount? Like, this is my thing about like biopics or true
Yeah,
stories
that's
where it's
stupid,
like,
man.
I think
I
I was telling you, I think it was about The Watcher, maybe our episode about that show, where it's like you're already making everything up, so make up better shit. Like, why keep some stuff the same that's not as good? Like or why tell the story? Like, why say it's a true story if you're just gonna change it all? Like, I don't really get that. I understand having to massage or embellish but like that's the kind of detail where you're like, okay, that's just cheap. Like cheap, literally, like and figuratively.
Yeah. I can't understand the logic as to why they would drastically change. It's like not even close. Like, why would you? What do you think you gain from taking it to $250,000?
To make it seem like it was more of an uphill battle? Like,
yeah, like they just don't have any money. It's all they can afford. I guess it's thinking about it out loud. Maybe that's what it is. Like, oh, people are gonna think because they're a billion. They said they're a $900 million company, right? In running shoes,
Yeah.
so they got the money. So I would assume it's to like play the victim a little bit more.
yeah.
You know, if you only have $250,000, it seems like, wow, they're so desperate, but they'll give them all their money. Like this is all the money they have in the bank. It's $250,000. But if they got $2.5 million, like,
Yeah, it's cheap.
you rich bastards.
Yeah, it's cheap. It's cheap.
It is cheap. That is shitty. That is shitty.
Yeah, I did like Affleck's performance, and I like his back and forth with Matt Damon. I thought that stuff was fun.
Yeah.
I
they're
too
good.
liked Bateman. Liked Chris Tucker. Everybody does a good job, but it is just very much like, we're gonna show up for the weekend and have a good time and let's act a little bit and move on to the next. Like this is a hard thing to quantify, but it never felt like a movie to me. It just kind of felt like maybe a TV show. I think you said short film. Like it just kind of had this energy of just like, oh yeah, here's a set and here you just go for it. Like a play almost. Like just it's not. It never felt like, oh, this is a film. Like this is we're really like going for it. Like it just, no one's going for it. Like they're just, like I said, like just putting my hand in, putting my toe in the water and doing just enough to get by, and they're really great. So just enough is better than most shit that's out there. Again, I'm not trying to insult this film, but it's terrible. It's not. But these guys are, capable. Everybody's capable of more. But then to your original point, maybe the story itself is just not capable of more. And so this was just the perfect story to sort of do like the buddies getting back together
film.
and making some movies for a little easier than others. I understand you're making Batman, you're making The Last Duel. Like those have to be pain in the ass roles. Let's just do an easy one. Oh shit, we're gonna win awards, like you said. So
Yeah. I think that's the focus here. I think it's a great subject matter with great actors, great talent. We'll try and we'll do a nice little small story. Don't make it too big. Don't just stay focused on this little guy's tale, and we'll get a Best Actor nomination.
Yeah, We're going to catch hell for this one. Everybody loves it. Sorry.
It's good. I don't think we're not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad. I don't think it's bad.
We're both not saying it's bad, but then we just spent 40 minutes only saying bad stuff about it.
Well, because it's bad. I think that's what we... I think we said a lot of good things about it. I think we said a lot of good. The acting's great. The directing's... You said it's average. I said it's pretty good.
But that's... Oh, yeah, the one last point in closing. Like, I feel like a hypocrite, I'll admit, because I often opine for that like kind of mid-budget film, right? Like those are the ones that are going away. These are the kinds of movies that I want Hollywood to make. I want big stars to make. Like kind of those mid-budget, which now somehow is $80 million. But like, yeah, just a smaller film that gets people to go to the theaters. This film was like pretty successful for what it was, box office returns. And like, this is a success story. And in some ways it should be something that like I would want to celebrate. But then it just makes me a little weary that the movie is so slick and commercial and not really, again, we're dicks for just saying like we know, like they're not trying. But it feels that way as people who know a little bit about films as we like, it just feels a little like, we just, like, I don't want to see our biggest stars and one of our more talented directors than Ben Affleck just start feeling like, we can kind of cut corners a little bit because that's all that's needed. Because we're just going to streaming studios now anyways. We can just kind of do what we do. We don't need to do these big, we don't need to do, and their next projects will tell us more about if that's a new pattern. It just makes me nervous.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that there needs to be more films like this. There needs to be more smaller stories in film. I agree. Smaller budgets and smaller focuses. Like, not everything has to be an extinction level event and an asteroid is coming to kill everyone and zombies are eating everyone's faces. Like, I agree. So that's great that this movie exists. But I think the problem for me is, with this one, it's the story. I just don't think the story lends itself to any sort of real drama, any real emotional investment, because that conflict is the key to it. The conflict and the stakes are the key to audiences really investing, in my humble opinion. And I don't blame Affleck or Damon or anyone if the subject matter doesn't really have it. But to your point, if they're making half the shit up anyway, then give someone cancer, like, great. Make some conflict that is a little bit more stark.
Yeah.
So there were steps they could have taken, but the subject matter as is just doesn't seem like there's anything there, and that conflict dictates the story. So maybe I'll give them a pass on this one if the next one that they do, or next one anyone does, sort of follows this same sort of trend, where it feels a little bit student filmy or, low budget short film kind of esque, where we just got in a room for a weekend and it seemed like there was like limitations on how they had to film. Like 24-hour film festivals. Like, all right, you can't
the kind
leave
of scripts
the room
that we have to write and the kind of movies we have to make. Like, all right, we've got 10 grand and people are only available for 2 days.
Yes, like that's what this film
It's the best
screams.
version of that.
Yeah, the best version of that. It's like, all right, we only have $90 million. We got Bateman for a week. We got Tucker for another week. Like, how do we make it work? Go ahead, just do it. Like, that's what this film kind of feels like. So we'll see if that trajectory continues in filmmaking in general. But I will blame the lack of meat to the story for this one. I don't blame anyone who made the film for this one.
Not yet. But we got our eyes on you.
I'm watching you, Affleck. Oh, I'm watching.
I'm gonna get the job back, Affleck, and then people are gonna know again.
What are they gonna know?
Did I look like Ben?